Hey, Richard Miller here again for Facts for Working People. I haven't done this for a while, but there's something I've been meaning to say, and it's been bugging me for a few days, so I want to get it off my chest. You see, I don't know if you know, but up there in Seattle, there was a proposal, and it's passed. It's a tax on wealthy individuals. It was introduced by Shah Sawant, along with council member Lisa Herbold. Sawant is the socialist candidate on Seattle City Council. And what it is a tax, a 2.25% tax on individual incomes over 250,000 and 500,000 for married couples. So what has that done? Firstly, it's a minor little detail, really. It's not a revolutionary act in the sense or anything like that. It's simply a minor detail. I don't quite know what it's for, but let's say it was just to build 50 houses, or let's say it was to have 100 beds for homeless people. Who knows? It's a minor thing that shifts wealth a little bit. So what does the LA Times say about that? The LA Times says, quote, a number of cities have adopted local income taxes, but no other city has solely targeted high earners, and few have adopted so high a tax rate. The measure has opened the door to political warfare in the state. Well, first off, political warfare goes on all the time. It never stops. It's class warfare is what that quote means. Class warfare. That's the problem with this measure. It's an open assault in a very minor way through an electoral politics on a class of people. And that's the real issue here. You can talk about anything in this country, about rights being taken away for all sorts of sections of society, which is fine to understand, us as workers to understand, but the class question must not be raised because there's no classes here. You can get what you want in this country if you work hard. This is the propaganda. So the LA Times is warned on it, and then this guy here, he's a Microsoft CEO, and he's a Seattle billionaire, Steve Ballmer. He says if this tax if it drives up a tax on the rich would drive up wages here and cause company executives to think about moving jobs elsewhere. That will certainly happen. Well, there's you can say it'll certainly happen, but that doesn't mean anything. Here we are. We live in we hear it all the time. America's great. The free country, the free leader of the free world. We live in a democracy. Blah blah blah. Firstly, of course, we had to struggle for the right to vote, and we should defend it. I think the last group to get it was Native Americans, and now actually prisoners. Of course, if you're felons, they disenfranchise you that way. Which disproportionately affects people of colour. But so here we are in this democracy of ours, and we've exercised the right to vote in a democracy, and we've shifted a little bit we've gone after a group of people. This is or a class of people, shifting it a little bit onto them. It's no major deal. The problem for them it is in the sense that it's a recognition and it's a class assault. It's a class assault just like a strike is, which is why unions are demonized and why the propaganda against strikes is so great. So here we are. We live in really what is a capitalist democracy, a bourgeois democracy, just like Greece was a slave owners democracy. The great Athenian democracy we talk about, slaves never had the right to vote. Slave owners voted. And we have the right to vote, but within certain limits, and democracy is very limited. We certainly don't control jobs, do we? Now, when they talk about other countries, despotic regimes, former colonial countries, military dictatorships, theocratic regimes. They talk about the corruption, the violence, the threats of violence. People can't vote, and if they do, there's these threats. Well, what's this guy just done? This Microsoft guy, this fellow American. What he's done is threatened violence against the people of Seattle. They did it during the machinist strike. They do it whenever workers struggle to gain a bigger share of the pie. He's threatened to move the jobs. There's no democracy. Well, him and other corporate leaders, business owners, other capitalists. And when I talk about capitalists, I'm not talking about the barber shop or the plumber. I'm talking about the investors, those whose life existence is dependent on the profit of capital and on the accumulation of capital. So he threatens like a cocky character that he is, and he should be cocky in a sense. He doesn't fear we're going to do anything about it. He certainly doesn't fear the trade union leaders who are ideologically in bed with him. And so he's threatened us with violence. The people of Seattle and Washington State, I don't know if it's statewide, with violence. So the question for us is understanding that clearly. It gets to that. Excuse me. It gets to that thing I raised, the stop in the mind that I first read about in Christopher Hill's History of the English Revolution, when he talked about the heroism of those fighting against the feudal, the control of the king and the absolute monarchy. But they could only go so far because they believed in the divine right of kings. They were trapped by that stop in the mind, their view of the world, that they believed he was God's man on earth. And I always say jokingly, well, yeah, until Cromwell came along and said, well, let's cut off his head, we'll see what happens. And a new day was born, a huge change was made. And so we have the same sort of thing. How can he say that? We'll move the jobs, and we passively accept that they'll move the jobs. If we didn't build unions by passively. They were illegal. They shot us. They deported us. They did all sorts of things. So the fact is we have to reject that idea in our own mind. And like we often say on the blog, bog has a different meaning in England. Is that we're involved in the struggle for the consciousnness of the working class in a mass way, but also individually. It's like understanding where profit comes from. That profit comes from the unpaid labour of the working class. I'm not going to go into that now. But when you understand that profit comes, if I say to you, I'll give you $15 for $20 bill, you wouldn't agree with it. It's unfair. Well, when they buy labour power, when they pay us wages, we produce more value than they pay us for. Profit comes out of that unpaid value. When we realise that, then it's a lot easier to confront this false idea that that's their money, they earned it, and all of this, that, and the other. So we have to overcome that stop in the mind. And let's think about these people. Let's think about what this man's just done on behalf of his class. He's threatened to take food out of our children's mouth. They control the jobs. There's no democracy when it comes to the workplace. They own the workplace. They control the workplace. They have the state that enforces that control. They have the police that enforces it when we challenge it, and what have you. They have the media, like the LA Times here. Why the LA Times said that, and why they are so hostile to any union struggle, and to this minor little detail here that might give, let's say it would be to create 100 low-income houses. Is that not a good thing? Half of these people, most of them, they're Christians. They talk about the love of mankind and the moral thing to do and everything else. I'm not just picking Christians out. Most religious talk about that. But what's this guy doing? Yes, you've exercised your right to vote, but if you vote this way, I'm going to eliminate the means of subsistence. I'm going to eliminate your means of survival, of determining whether you have a roof over your head. These people allow homeless people to sleep on the freeways. There's mentally ill people. If you're not mentally ill entering homelessness, you're going to be mentally ill after it, believe me, if you do it long enough, if you're involved in that long enough. They'll send sheriffs to kick you out of your house. They'll slaughter people abroad for commodities and in the struggle for raw materials. They'll to save money, they'll poison American people in our cities. They'll destroy the bloody earth. This is the people we're talking about. This is what this man is. We have to reject in our own mind. You're not going to move the jobs. They did the same during the Boeing strike up there and took Sawant's credit. She called for the workers to take over the factory and run it. In Argentina, one of the ways they keep us bloody distracted with sport every minute of the day, excessive religion, sex, everything that they do to keep us distracted. These things have worked in other places. They work temporarily. Who knows about Seattle is the home of the general strike. Go read about the Seattle general strike when the working class controlled that city for 5 days. You can still read the minutes of that. So this idea that this $32 billion parasitical character is threatening to destroy the lives of people up there when they've exercised their, quote, democratic right. It shows us how democratic things are. When it comes to the economy, it's not democratic. And so it angers me that this guy can do that. You hear nothing from the trade union leadership. They're in bed with them ideologically. I just was reading about those dead migrants in that truck in Texas, and all the religious leaders are out speaking about where the hell are the leaders of the labor movement. There's there's thousands of Latino workers and Mexican workers in the labor movement and working in this country. Where are the voices of the people that at the top organize labor? Every local union that has relative freedom needs to protest this, needs to not keep quiet about the role the leadership plays in our society, the leadership of the trade unions, the betrayals that they do. So that's the dominant thing in my mind, to realize why this is such a problem, this little tax. Not the money, it's the fact that it is actually an assault on class. You can discuss anything here. Racial this, you can talk about this is a white this, a black that, a Mexican that, a this and that, transgender. All of these issues, I'll anticipate assaults from people who are obsessed with identity politics. All these issues, the assault on women, all of these things, these are issues. They're important issues that we have to take up, that the unions have to take up, and I took them up in the trade union movement when I was active in it. But under no circumstances must you dare use your labor power or the political structure to go after the class that rules. And that's what this issue is about. So anyway, I got it out of my chest now, and that caused all the sneezing. Sorry about the sneezing. Anyway, all right, it's Richard Mellor, Facts Working People. Read our blog. Again, we always need help financially. If you can give us a little bit, there's a donate button on the side of the blog here. If you can give us a little bit monthly, that's really important. We have discussions on our weekly conference calls, and actually at the end of this video I'll put down the general principles for people coming onto those conference calls. We want to create a workers' think tank. Most workers don't read the bourgeois press in the same way political people do. They've got think tanks like the Peterson Institute, all of these billionaires from the hedge funds and everything else, they have these think tanks where they figure out how to best make capitalism work to their advantage and against workers of the United States and the rest of the world. Our ally, they talk about we're all Americans, yeah, we're all in this. What sort of American would do that to you? Among the working people I worked with, Latinos, blacks, Asians, people that did that to other people were looked down upon. We had a sense of class solidarity. Despite all the weaknesses, the racial ideas that come out of the ruling class, the white ruling class in this country, the religious problems, the religious sectarianism, all of the weaknesses of the working class. We don't respect people that do that. But we're blinded by nationalism, this idea that we're all Americans. This guy's our enemy. How could you do that to people threatening to move jobs? And we want to take that right away from you. For us, and for a genuinely democratic socialist society, you know what? I believe, and I believe genuine socialists do, that everybody has the right to a home, to a job, to education, to healthcare, everybody, including this billionaire, which is something he won't guarantee us. But he can't do it under the conditions that we have here. So anyway, that's me at the end of me for today. Thanks a lot. I feel a lot better now. Okay? Talk to you later.